39 is super easy. All we need to remember is that domain are your x values and range are your y values. So they give us some coordinates over here. It's really important that we just identify what those coordinates are and just write down what the coordinates are. So like, as I look at this graph, it could be a little tricky, so you might want to just reinforce your y-axis and your x-axis. That way you'll make sure that you start from the origin. When I first looked at it, I made the mistake of starting from a different point. So from the origin, from here to this first coordinate down here, it would be 0 on the x, negative 2 on the y. So this coordinate right here is 0, negative 2. This coordinate up here, this blue one right here, it's actually the coordinate negative 1 on the x, positive 1 on the y. Because we went negative 1 on the x, positive 1 on the y. And from here over here, it's positive 1 and positive 1, 2, 3. So that's the coordinate 1, 3. And this last point over here is 1, 2, 3 on the x, 0 on the y, so 3, 0. So you identify all your coordinates, and then you go back to the question and realize, what are they asking for? They're asking for the domain, and we know the domain values are x values. So our x values are negative 1, 0, 1, and 3. If they would ask for the y values, for the range values, then they'd be asking for the y values. Right here they're asking for domain values, that's the x values. So let's look for the list that has negative 1, 0, 1, and 3. And that would be option A. Negative 1, 0, 1, and 3. That's like 3 points, guys. Super easy. All you got to remember is that domain are x values, range are y values. Number 40. Evaluate. You're just going to plug in values, and you're going to do the correct math. So we're going to plug in x, which is 3, and that is 3 to the second power. Should probably put it in parentheses. Plus 3 times y times z, and y happens to be 5 and z happens to be 4. So when I work this out, I get a 9 right here, so that's going to be 9, and then 3 times 5 is 15, 15 times 4 is 60. So final answer is 69. Right there. Jumping to number 41, interpret the y-intercept of the graph. So we have a bunch of multiple choice answers here. Let's just look at the graph and let's understand what the y-intercept means, all right? So first of all, the y-axis is this one. The y-intercept happens to be at this point right here. So let me just put that dot right there. So what does that tell us? It tells us that it's at the coordinate 0 on the x and about 30 on the y, correct? The y-intercept? Yes? Okay, so the x values are your bracelets by the dozen, and your y values is your cost. So what this is telling us is that it's going to cost about $30 to make no bracelets. In other words, it's going to cost $30 to start it up. So that's what my interpretation is. Let's go over here, and which option sounds right? Option A. 0 bracelets costs about $30. In other words, $30 is the startup cost, right? It's definitely not that 1 dozen bracelets costs about $30. It's not that 28 dozen bracelets, or yeah, that costs $0. So option A is the answer. 42 and 43. So 42, we're going to solve this inequality. And the x is on the right side, so I'm going to subtract 38. It's going to cancel out. Subtract 38. And with the calculator, 38, negative 38, minus 51. Let me start that over. Negative 51 minus 38, that's negative 89. So we have negative 89 is less than or equal to x. Now, notice that the multiple choice answers don't have the x on the right side of the inequality, so it's better to take this and kind of like flip the whole thing. All right, flip the whole thing. So what you see here is the right answer. We just need to flip it, put x on this side, negative 89 on this side, and if it does open up to the x, which it does, then it has to continue to open up to the x. Because the first one was your answer, we just need to flip everything over. So if we look for the multiple choice answer there, it'll be x is greater than or equal to negative 89, which is option C. It does not say C either. Okay, so I'm assuming all the answers are wrong on this later part of the test, because I know that's right. 42 is right. Let's do number 43. We're going to get y by itself on one side. I want to subtract 4y. I want to subtract 4y. You're going to get 2y minus 8 is greater than 26. And then I want to get rid of the minus 8 by adding 8. Adding 8, I want to get 2y is greater than 34. Okay, so now we're going to just finally divide by 2. Divide by 2. Now we're dividing by a regular 2, so it's going to be y is greater than, you don't flip the inequality symbol, but that will be 17. So y is greater than 17. And that would be option D. Number 44. This is not an equation. They just want us to evaluate, which means use PEMDAS, parentheses first. So if you zoom into the parenthesis part, obviously you're going to divide first before subtracting. So 20 divided by 4 is what? 5. And then 5, take away 5 inside the parentheses with the 2 on the outside with the plus 1. Let's see what else we have. Let me zoom out a little. Times 29 at the very front. Times 29. So if you continue with the parentheses, 5 take away 5 is 0. So think about this. This is really just 0. And then you have 2 times 0, which is 0. So you really have the simple problem 29 times 1 plus 0. So that's just 29. Number 45, determine which of the ordered pairs is part of the solution set for the inequality graph at the right. Okay, so we have some coordinates down there, which are really answers. But remember, when you graph something, that graph represents the infinite amount of answers. So when it says which ordered pair is part of the solution set, what it's really saying is which coordinate is actually on this line. So let's go to the coordinate 2, 1. And if you do go to the coordinate from the origin 2, 1, it's not on the line. If you go to the coordinate 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, it's not on the line. If you go to negative 3, that one is on the line. From the origin, negative 3, check it out. From the origin, negative 1, 2, 3, negative 1, 2, 3, it is on the line. That's the only real answer that belongs on this line. It's the only coordinate that's on the line. So moving on. 46, determine which ordered pair is part of the solution. Okay, so again, they give us coordinates, which are really x and y values. And all they're asking for is which of those x and y values works for this. So all I got to do is test them. So let's test 2 and 3 in here and here. So if I plug in a 2 for x and a 3 for y, that's going to be 1/2 times 2, and a 3 for y plus 1 is greater than plus 3. So all I did was plug in a 2 for x and a 3 for y. Now let's see if this actually works. We end up with 4 is greater than 1 plus 3 is 4. Is that a true statement? Is 4 greater than 4? No, this is not it. So option A did not work. This coordinate is not a solution. It doesn't work. It doesn't give you a true statement. Let's go for B, negative 4, 0. So plugging in -4 for x, 0 for y, this would read 0 plus 1 is greater than 1/2 times -4 plus 3. So if we do simplify this, 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 is greater than, the 4 cancels with the 2, but there's a negative sign with the 2 left over up there. So that's really 1 times -2. That's -2 plus 3. And 1 is not going to be greater than 1. So again, it did not work. So we need to test the next number, or the next answer, which is 1 and 2. So let me try to do this in my head here. If I plug in a 1 for x and a 2 for y, 1 for x, 2 for y, it'll say 3 is greater than 3.5. Which is false also. So C did not work. So let me erase that. And D must be our final answer. But just to prove. But what we should do is actually check and see if D is an answer. Not just, on the test there should not be any mistakes. But because there's been so many mistakes here, let's actually test it. So I want to write y plus 1 is greater than 1/2 times x plus 3. So x is -3 and y is 1. So you have 2 is greater than -3 times half is -1.5 plus 3. Oh no, it works because you have 2 is greater than -1.5 plus 3 is +1.5, and definitely 2 is greater than 1.5. So D is the correct answer. This is also an important question number 47 because this is an inequality instead of a line. Now we all know how to graph lines, y equals mx plus b, right? Now let's pretend that this guy is a line. What is the m and what is the b just by looking at the graph? What's the m value? What's your rise over run if you pick one point and go to the next point? Do you go up or do you go down? What's a rise over run from here to here? 1 over -1 over 1, right? So the slope is -1. What's the b value? Where does it cross? Oh wait, yeah. My problem is let me do this to clarify the y-axis. And wow, that's ugly. And the x-axis. There you go. So this does cross at 2. So the b value is 2. So we know if it were an equation, it would be -1x plus 2, or just -x plus 2. Now, as you could see, it can't be C, it can't be D, it's either A or B. Now, there's a problem with this. There should be some type of shading, and it should be shaded up here. Okay? I don't know if you could really see that shaded or not, but it should be shaded up there. And if it's shaded above, then you would say greater than. So your final answer would be B. Now, the correct way of doing it would be to test a point like the origin. Now, the origin is clearly on this side. It's on this side of the line. So if it works, then you would have to shade in this side, because all your solutions are either going to be on one side of the line or the other side of the line. Now, up here, it's shaded on the top. So it's saying that your values are up here, all your answers are up here, which means that if you test the point 0, 0, it should not work. So if you do test the point 0 for x, 0 for y, it's going to say 0 is greater than 2, which is false. 0, 0 is not an answer, which verifies that your answers are up here on this side. So option B is the correct answer.